If there's one thing that Star Wars Battlefront 2 accomplishes well, it's the feeling of being in the exciting universe of the legendary film series. Serving up the greatest hits of all things Star Wars, the follow-up to DICE's 2015 multiplayer-focused game presents a greater package of content over its predecessor. But overall, it's weighed down by an overbearing and convoluted progression system that doesn't seem to value the average player's time, obscuring an otherwise solid Star Wars experience. Set across the backdrop of the entire Star Wars saga, Battlefront 2 expands the scope of its galactic battles to great effect. From taking part in aerial dogfights above Kamino, to raiding the Death Star 2 and escaping before its destruction, the sequel puts its 14 maps set across the 40-year history of the series to good use, showing a clear difference in aesthetics and tone from one time period to the next.
What's the plan, Commander?
Keep this Star Destroyer safe. The rebels can't learn about Operation Cinder.
Unlike the first Battlefront, the sequel contains a narrative-driven single-player campaign showing the fall of the Empire and the eventual dawn of the First Order. You take on the role of Iden Versio, commander of Imperial Special Forces outfit Inferno Squad. She normally works to undermine rebel forces with covert missions and other forms of espionage. But after the fall of the second Death Star, her loyalty to the Empire is tested when an increasingly desperate Imperial army takes drastic measures to ensure its future.
I did not call for you, Commander Versio.
Vardos is our target?
One of them, yes.
Why? The entire planet and its people, they're loyal to the Empire.
The Emperor commands it. We'll purge this planet and others. Fear shall spread and the galaxy will remember who is in control.
This is our home.
The Empire is our home, and we will do as the Emperor commands.
While the brisk 4 to 5 hour campaign features some strong writing and performances from its cast, with some standout levels that show off the visual luster and diversity of locations within the universe, the potential of its Imperial point of view soon becomes lost. Falling into some rather predictable twists, the story eventually turns into a familiar by-the-numbers Star Wars adventure, where the good guys and bad guys are clearly defined, and with the lead-up to the final act's confrontation that's signposted from a mile away.
If the Empire's here, and what I sensed was true, there must be something special about this place.
On occasion, the campaign jumps to levels that feature familiar faces, adding some moments of levity to the story. Though as fun and refreshing as they can be, they come off a bit too much like fan service, leading Iden Versio to stand in the shadow of others. This is made worse by an abrupt ending that teases future updates to the campaign, instead of delivering a strong conclusion for its hero's journey. With that said, the campaign does a fairly decent job of showing the internal strife within the Empire's ranks, even allowing you to explore an Imperial civilization on Iden's homeworld of Vardos. But overall, it falls a bit short of making it a remarkable journey for its characters. Outside of the campaign and massive multiplayer battles, there are side modes that offer some interesting diversions. The arcade mode makes a return, featuring themed levels where you battle AI bots as classic light and dark side characters. Moreover, the fan-favorite Heroes vs. Villains mode is back, letting players cut loose with their favorite characters. Cutting out unnecessary filler, players can choose their unlocked characters and compete in 4-on-4 battles in over-the-top and ridiculous fashion.
This spaceport, Mos Eisley, is home to an elite rebel cell. Orders are to kill or capture all parties involved, but they're heavily armed and already on alert.
Much of your time will be spent on the galactic front lines in Battlefront 2's multiplayer. While the 40-player conquest game type Galactic Assault will likely be the most popular game mode, the upgraded Starfighter Assault deserves some recognition. Now with more responsive and tighter controls for maneuvering your vessels, the aerial-focused mode features Battlefront 2's most intense missions. Along with some stellar visual and sound design, the large-scale battles have the same exciting flow as Star Wars' most iconic fights, where one heroic action can turn the tide of a conflict.
Another victory for the First Order.
Your set of troopers, starfighter classes, and hero characters can be boosted up with star cards. By amplifying stats, adding bonus attributes, and even giving characters alternate loadouts, such as replacing a heavy trooper's energy shield for a grenade launcher, the number of ways you can modify your characters is impressive.
Scanning hostile! Closing range! Starting kill streak!
Unfortunately, this is where Battlefront 2's multiplayer progression begins to show its cracks. Getting a handle of the many systems, gates, and subtle nuances therein can be confusing and off-putting. After each battle, you'll collect experience for your overall rank, and also credits to use for purchasing loot crates in the in-game store. By relying on randomly yielded weapons, resources, and star cards of varying grades, Battlefront 2 largely ties its progression to dice rolls. While you can acquire and upgrade star cards on your own by using crafting components found from loot crates, this also leads into the general problem of gating. To upgrade a card, you have to ensure that your class level and overall multiplayer ranking meets certain standards, while also spending the fruits of your labor on loot crates for more resources and cards. Simply focusing on the characters and classes you like to play isn't enough, and the system in place all too easily puts walls in front of you. Due to the randomness and the inherent dependence on the loot crates, progression is often dictated by what these results are. This steers you away from the classes you like, and more annoyingly, results in cards for hero characters you have yet to unlock. This is all made worse by the cumbersome menu system, which prompts you to exit out of multiplayer games to collect your rewards from milestones and challenges, while also obscuring vital information such as player rank and class data. Shortly before Battlefront 2's official launch, EA removed its premium currency due to negative reaction from the early access period. In the form of crystals, this particular resource, which you were able to buy in packs up to $100, was used to circumvent credits for purchasing loot boxes. While this removal may seem like a welcome change, the rest of the progression system remains unaltered, leaving you with fewer options to deal with an already steep grind. The grind in Battlefront 2 will force you to reconcile with the fact that the time you invest in the game won't always be rewarded with progress, or at least in the way you want. But above all, the biggest problem with the system is that it's never clearly explained. While you'll eventually come to understand the value of credits and other resources, this realization comes as a result of how little the game offers them. In addition to the arcade mode time-gating mission rewards upon completion, many of the rewards from battle and milestone challenges offer scraps for the sometimes large efforts. Though the prices of heroes have been significantly slashed, trying to save up for them is still a large exercise in patience and frustration, as stockpiling your credits means you won't be able to buy the expensive and vital loot crates. In this way, Battlefront 2 plants itself in the same territory as free-to-play games, with much of its content and characters tucked away behind progression walls, randomized loot boxes, and gameplay timers. Above all, it ends up doing a disservice to the core gameplay itself, which can still provide those solid moments of enjoyment despite the looming presence of its progression systems. Many of these issues related to the metagame fall by the wayside when you're in the thick of battle, as you're taking part in the massive struggle throughout the many locales in the Star Wars universe. While its main narrative feels unresolved, and the general loop of the multiplayer carries a number of issues, Battlefront 2 still manages to evoke the same sense of joy and excitement found in the core of what the series is all about. But as it stands, the biggest hurdle that Battlefront 2 will need to overcome, for its simultaneous attempts to balance complex progression with the genuine feeling of accomplishments, is deciding on what type of game it wants to be.
3, 2, 1.